Let's have a look ahead to the weekend, Justin. And our game of the weekend is the huge clash between the top two in the division. It's Stoke City at home to Coventry City on a Saturday afternoon. But the question that the whole world is screaming at us right now, Justin, is what derby is this?
It's the J. Bothroyd derby, Ryan.
No, it's not. I mean, I guess it's the Mark Robins derby, really, isn't it? But if you want a player, then the Marcus Hall derby is probably best. Did J. Bothroyd play much for Coventry or Stoke?
He played a lot for Coventry, 4 appearances for Stoke.
There you go.
But then there's John Eustace as well. He's another one.
Yeah, true. John Eustace is one of those who I associate a lot more with other clubs, but Marcus Hall I associate specifically with Coventry and Stoke, hence why I think he was the best option, whereas J. Bothroyd, I associate him with England. But yeah, if this game needed any more spice, it's also the small matter of Mark Robins facing his former club. You got the top two just in facing off, and you've got the Mark Robins factor here. There is a lot of narrative to go around.
Oh, we do love a bit of narrative on this podcast. Yeah. We're full of it. We're absolutely full of it. Narrative, that is. But it's such an intriguing tie because we're almost a year to the day Mark Robins left Coventry as well. I think we're coming up close to that anniversary. It depends where you sit because this is such a big game for both teams in the fact that Coventry need to keep the run going. Stoke need to convince people outside of Stoke that they are a contender for promotion, and then you add in the Mark Robins coming up against his former club where he's a legend at. This is a lot.
Justin, here's the info for you. Mark Robins lost his job at Coventry today. There you go. So literally tomorrow is when they're facing off. It's like it was written in the stars. The fixture scheduler knew what they were doing. They always know. But it's not the first time they faced off since Mark Robins left this time last year. They did face off in March, which Coventry won 3-2, but those two were in very different positions at the time, weren't they? Coventry were fighting to get into the top 6. Stoke were fighting to stay up. Now, they're both dreaming big this season because they're the two teams who have had the best starts.
Yeah, well, they are the top 2. That's usually what it suggests. But Coventry have been another level this season. That goes without saying, and it feels like Stoke are starting to find their feet and their confidence, not just defensively, but also going forwards. I know you can throw the laptop Excel spreadsheet bollocks at me. I don't really care about that. They're in the top 2, Ryan. They kept a lot of clean sheets. But actually, I think the last 2 games, that shows from a Stoke point of view that they are really starting to kick on a little bit. And they do sit, in terms of taking shots per game and conceding shots per game, they are very middle of the road. So there is still improvements to be made if they are going to sustain that top 2 push. But this is the big test. This is the big test.
Looking at his laptop.
It's not XG though, is it? It's just shots. It's just kicking a ball at a goal.
It's all stats, mate.
But this is Stoke's big test, isn't it? Because Coventry are the biggest threat in the division. And Mark Robins is a very astute tactician. And that's why it's also quite a big test for Frank Lampard and Coventry too. So that's what I mean. That's what we were saying. There's narrative.
Yeah, a lot of narrative. And to reiterate my point from yesterday's show, I do look at Stoke and think they have quite simply not been the second best team in the division this season. That's in terms of the underlying data and the eye test. But the only stat that matters here, Justin, is the table. And they sit second. So that's all that matters as far as Mark Robins is concerned. What I've been saying is that I don't think they've been as good as their position in the table suggests, but I don't want to go as far to say that they've been lucky because you make your own luck in the division. But I think they have been fortunate, particularly with the number of goals they've been conceding or not conceding, I guess in Stoke's case. However, confidence is high and they will fancy their chances here, won't they? Especially after seeing Wrexham beat Coventry this time last week, because that's at least shown teams that Coventry aren't infallible.
Well, I thought Wrexham set up a very nice blueprint for teams to beat Coventry, where they forced them into central areas, pressed them, reduced the space in behind, and it almost suffocated Coventry. You had Haji Wright and Brandon Thomas-Sante, who for large spells were, actually for the entire game, they were absent. They may as well have not been on the pitch. They were terrible in that sense. They weren't finding space, they weren't finding balls into feet, and they struggled to get into the game. And that wasn't because they were they're shit players, they're good players, to be really blunt. It's because Wrexham did a job on him. And that's what I mean by Wrexham setting a blueprint for beating Coventry, because I don't think enough teams have had a go at Coventry yet this season. And that's not to diminish Coventry's form at all, but the way Wrexham went about their business, that was interesting. You do have to caveat that win by saying that Bobby Thomas, Milan Van Eerwyk, Victor Torp, they weren't in the starting 11. That can change things drastically. But Mark Robbins is a very switched-on coach. We've seen Stoke blow 2 teams away in 2 consecutive games. But he's got players who can produce moments of quality, like Milan Mainhoff and Sorba Thomas. That's just Frank Lampard, and that's why it's such a good game. But what I mean by that, the moments of quality is, I'm expecting Mark Robbins to do a job on Coventry and for them to take an opportunity at some point through a set piece or a counter-attack.
Well, while we know that Coventry aren't unbeatable now, the question that's on everyone's lips is, can Coventry keep this up and get automatically promoted this season? They responded well by beating Sheffield United in midweek, but have shown signs of creakiness in these last few games, haven't they, Justin? It wasn't just that Wrexham defeat. It wasn't like that came completely out of nowhere, was it?
Yeah, there was the Blackburn game, and then they played Portsmouth, and then I can't remember who they played after that. Watford. Yeah, they were showing signs of vulnerability, which is a good thing, and probably a thing you should expect at this point in the season for any team, really. But for me, there aren't enough teams who are convincing enough. I just don't think there are. Your parachute payment teams are lingering at the wrong end of the division. That strengthened Coventry's position. So if Stoke can get a win here, that's a really nice challenger, because that's 3 wins on the bounce for them, 2 of which were against Bristol City and potentially Cov. And that shows that they could be the real deal. But from a Coventry point of view, they've got to dust themselves down, because even against Sheffield United, despite them reacting really well, they still went behind. So there's still an element of vulnerability that I'm sure Stoke will be, they'd have done the homework on, definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Stoke, really. I think 4 wins from 5 doesn't tell the whole story with Coventry. Well, it's a lot more wins than that, but I'm looking at mainly the last 5 games where that vulnerability, as you call it, has perhaps been a bit more evident, because they did deserve to beat Sheffield United in midweek. Made hard work of it, considering there's nearly an entire league between them. But they deserved to lose against Wrexham last week. The Watford game before that, Watford missed so many big chances. Against Portsmouth, they were solid. That was fine. And then they were quite fortunate against Blackburn just before. I am looking at these games through the prism of how well Coventry played in the first 9 games, because they were exceptional. That was absolutely undeniable. They were really blowing teams away, but they've definitely dropped a gear since then. And it is worth pointing out as well, those past 5 games haven't been the trickiest of games either. They're all teams in the bottom half, bar Watford, who are 12th. So I'm very interested to see how they get on here against a Stoke side who are obviously flying high. However, if Coventry win, Justin, they'll go at least 5 points clear at the top, and will be guaranteed to have a 7-point cushion on the teams outside of the top 2, which would be a very handsome position to be in at the November international break, wouldn't it?
I was going to say as handsome as you, but then that's not great, is it? Do you know what I mean?
Dare you? I am dashing.
Don't want to diminish what is actually a very good cushion if they do pick up 3 points. It's a great place to be in, a very, very good place to be in. But it's really important to say in the Championship is no team wins the league by November. I think if you go back 2 years, Leicester are in a great position, but you get to February and they almost derail. Or they do derail. They just had a very nice lead. So maybe they did win the league by November. Anyway, my point stands, because I go back to last season, Sheffield United were top, Sunderland were second, Leeds were 4 points off. So those top 2 teams had a nice cushion on third place Leeds. And ultimately, Leeds end up winning the league because they hit a new stride coming in after the international break in November, and they become relentless. It's a nice cushion, but the cushion is pointless if your winter period of form is poor. So the solid foundation is there. Coventry have done themselves a really, really decent, put themselves in a really good position, nice favourable position. But promotion, I think, is earned over the next 8 weeks. That's the big separator for teams.
Well, as you say, earned in May, technically, but
technically, yes.
Season. Yeah.
But you graft your points. It's
I
so
know
many
what
games.
you mean, Justin.
I'm cynical.
Just jabbing you.
Don't get lost. I know I called you ugly, but it's just let's stay
You
on
never
task.
said ugly. You said not handsome. There's a difference.
Well,
I'll take not handsome, but ugly's taking it a bit too far. To basically echo what you've been saying. this next period is huge for Cov because, you got the games coming thick and fast, and kind of goes without saying that where their season goes next depends a lot on how they approach these games over the winter period. And whenever people say, oh, I don't think Coventry will keep it up this season, I don't think they'll get automatically promoted, the question is then, well, who else do you think is going to get automatically promoted? You need two teams to fill that gap instead. Maybe it'll be Stoke. I doubt it, but there's not many other contenders out there right now, is there? I mean, Middlesbrough are dropping off. We'll talk more about them a bit later on. But you've got Birmingham, Ipswich, two teams who people were tipping to be perhaps going for automatic promotion this season. Well, Ipswich definitely. They're set 9th and 10th, and then where do we even start with Sheffield United and Southampton? So that's the big thing here for Coventry. So if they can just maintain a decent base level of performances, then yeah, they'll be absolutely loving life come the end of the season. But how do we see this one going, Justin Peach? Stoke City versus Coventry City tomorrow afternoon.
I can see it being a draw. I know that's probably a bit of a flat response to all that hype, but I can see it being a draw. I think Coventry, no disrespect to them, they've shown that they've got one way of playing at the moment, and it's a good way of playing because it's attack and try and blow your opposition away. I know they've had a couple of games where it's not quite been the case, but that's what I've seen. Whereas I think Stoke have a little bit more adaptability about them because it's Mark Robins. Mark Robins, if there's an opposition that are stronger than his team, he will counteract their strengths and make it a very difficult game for them. So I see him being the key instigator in the teams cancelling each other out.
Interesting. I, as previously stated, haven't been totally amazed by either of these two sides recently, but I think I might go with a Coventry win, Justin. I'm just edging more in that direction. I think the reason I'm going with that is because even though I haven't been too impressed with either of these two recently, I think I've been the least impressed by Coventry. Because while they have been a bit shaky at times, I just look at Stoke and think, how are you not conceding more goals? And if the likes of Thomas Asante, Victor Torp, etc., are on form again, when it comes to their shooting boots being firmly on their blooming feet, then they should be able to put Stoke to the sword, I think. Unless Victor Johansson has got that big force field around his goal, which has been evident now for the first 14 games of this season, because, as I say, they should have conceded a lot more than they have done. But yeah, I'm going to go with a Coventry win in this particular game. We'll see how they get on Sunday. Justin, we'll have a quick break. After that, we'll talk about our predictions for this weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Just a reminder before we crack on with more of this weekend's action. If you didn't listen to yesterday's show, then we've got some big news. We have been nominated for Best Football Podcast at the Football Supporters Association Awards, which we weren't expecting, Justin, were we? To be quite frank, we, of course, also were nominated, still been nominated, for the Best Football League podcast at the Football Content Awards. And that's obviously great. We love that. But this is not just Football League. This is Best Football Podcast in general. So for us to be up there, nominated alongside some of the very biggest of big guns that there are in the football podcasting sphere is still a bit mind-blowing to me.
Very mind-blowing. Still struggling to formulate words to really sort of impact it. But all I can say is if you do vote for us, this is a vote for the little man. This is a vote to uphold the values that we have as a championship podcast.
It's to
as
upset
a league.
The status quo.
Exactly.
It's to give it one to the elites, Justin.
Exactly.
Getting a bit dangerous with this language now.
The borderline revolutionary.
Don't say it.
But on a serious note, we're very humbled by it. But you do have to vote for us, so please vote for us. It would mean a hell of a lot.
Please vote for us.
Please.
We're probably not going to win because have you seen who we're up against? But if we get anywhere near to the podium, we'll be very, very happy because, it would be very much like Leicester winning the Premier League if we came anywhere near to winning it, quite frankly. So please vote for us. The link is in the description of the episode. Anyway, it's now time for this.
Wednesday Watch.
Yes, it is. Justin Peach is mouthing along with it there. He was enjoying that. Sheffield Wednesday are, of course, in action this weekend. They travel to Southampton tomorrow afternoon, and it's an early relegation 6-pointer, isn't it? But based off how these two sides are going at the moment. Also a battle of two teams who used to have Sanderson as their sponsor on their classic shirts.
That is lovely.
Yeah, from the early 90s. The first thing I thought of when I saw this game. Very good stuff. But anyway, the takeover process seems to be going well at Sheffield Wednesday. Justin, the Sheffield Star says parties interested in buying Wednesday are expected to start making official offers within the next 2 weeks, and a preferred bidder may potentially be chosen during the upcoming international break. So all moving very quickly. It's said that a total of 7 interested parties are known to have offered a £50 million proof of funds, which is significantly less than £100 million, isn't it? And it's believed that within the next week, the number of suitors may even move into double figures. So it's fair to say it's going a hell of a lot better than Derby's administration did, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, fair play to Chris Wigfield and the Begbies trainer, who are the administrators, for being so transparent. There was a similar course with Derby. I think that's the only. I know it's a very positive thing, and I know me sort of saying this is almost putting a bit of water on the fire. But there was a lot of communication with Derby's administration as well before it dried up. It's not to say these administrators will do that, but they do have to pick a buyer still. They have to pick the right buyer and keep the process moving. And hope that the preferred bidder that they do choose is a tie kicker or someone who isn't fraudulent, as we've seen in the past.
I was going to say that kind of goes against what you were just saying about Derby's administrators, because they definitely had some interesting preferred bidders before eventually giving the club to David Clowes, didn't they?
But that comes on to my next point is they can't control that. They can't. I mean, they can do their background checks.
They don't have to select them as preferred bidders, Justin.
No, they don't. They obviously can control that, but ultimately, when you select someone as a preferred bidder, you can get cold feet. Like we've all I don't know, been looking at purchasing a new vacuum cleaner, and then eventually we've never purchased a vacuum cleaner because the one you've got is fine. No,
I'm struggling to see how this metaphor links to Sheffield Wednesday.
Ultimately, you want something new and shiny, but the price is a bit, and you don't end up going through it. I'm tire kicking vacuum cleaners right now. But I think what the difference is with Derby and Reading is Sheffield Wednesday have got much greater interest, which I don't know if creates a bit more of a hindrance for the administrators, because there's a lot of preferred bidders or a lot of potential bidders to pick through, which is a task in itself.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that's absolutely right. Trying to differentiate between who is, I guess, serious for a start, but also who would be best suited for Sheffield Wednesday is going to be a real task if we're talking double figures, because that's a lot of different bits of paperwork to look over, I guess. But considering Sheffield Wednesday are almost certainly going to be in League One next season, and you'll have to buy a completely new squad and the stadium's falling apart, it wouldn't have been a surprise if Wednesday didn't have buyers queuing up, but that just goes to show how big a club Wednesday are and how much potential there is, if in the right hands, of course. A lot of names are being bandied about when it comes to who could be taking over. Mike Ashley is believed to be amongst those interested. A group led by former Sunderland director Charlie Methven is set to be involved. You know, the one who wanted to have the Ibiza dance tunes in Sunderland Till I Die. There were also rumours that Rio Ferdinand was interested in a takeover, but I think I've seen that's been rubbished now. Whatever the case, a lot of interest in Wednesday. That's good, and we may have an idea of who's taking over soon enough. But how do you see them getting on this weekend, Justin? Southampton v Sheffield Wednesday tomorrow afternoon.
I'm going to wager Southampton on this one. It's probably the easy choice. I think maybe, just maybe, Southampton simplifying their style of play with a shell-shocked group of players gives them less to think about, and I think that's going to help things for them just to develop a little bit of confidence, a little bit of movement, and therefore I do see things going Southampton's way. Simplifying, yeah, they're going to do the simple things that they haven't been doing, which is defending and scoring, and that's all you can ask for at Southampton.
Yeah, that certainly helps when they're defending and scoring, doesn't it? I think, yeah, you've got to be back in Southampton here. They got just their third win of the season in midweek against QPR, although they weren't amazing in that one. But quite simply, when you put these two squads side by side, a no contest, isn't it? So Southampton should be winning, and 2 wins from 2 would be a fantastic start for the interim coach, Tunde Eckert. Let's have a look ahead to the weekend then, Justin, and each preview episode of the second tier. Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider. So someone we think is going to win, but there's bigger odds with the bookies than their opponent. We're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. I don't know what this voice is anymore, but whoever loses has to do a forfeit, which is to become a Frank Lampard superfan for the day. And the current scores look like this. It's 16-9 to me. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gents. A 7-point advantage for me now. And the reason for that is because I've got a full house 2 weeks in a row. I am on fire, Justin Peach, and your defence is terrified.
Yeah, it makes no difference here, but I picked the right results in the wrong games last weekend.
Yeah, you say that quite a lot, but it doesn't seem to be changing the scores very much, does it?
No, it doesn't, because the games that I've been picking, or not picking, they've been coming through. Like I predicted a Sheffield Wednesday draw last weekend. That came in. Pointless. Obviously, I predicted a Wrexham win last weekend. That came in. Pointless.
Score as many goals as you want on the training ground, mate. Only matters when you get onto the pitch.
I'm aware, but I need this weekend because that's a big old chunky gap.
It is, isn't it? And it could be coming insurmountable if I have another good weekend this weekend. Hey, you're pulling that face, Justin. I could have a 10-point gap by the end of this weekend if you're not careful, sunshine. What is your banker for this weekend, Justin?
I've gone with Blackburn to win at home to Derby on Saturday lunchtime.
Traitor.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. This is a doozy. This is a doozy for so many reasons. As we were talking about, there's narrative. Ooh. For some reasons as well, I think I'll dive into this first because it's an interesting point. For some reason, the fans have created some sort of a rivalry between each other on social media. I say for some reason, it's obvious because of Derby stealing everything associated with Blackburn. I'm surprised Alan Shearer is not wearing a Derby shirt for the 150th anniversary celebrations at this point. But also, just to add a little bit more needle to it, Ryan, Blackburn have given Derby a reduced allocation for the game. It makes no sense because Derby are a club that travel really, really well, and they would have sold out that away end just like Blackburn did. Amongst other clubs, Norwich took a high attendance. So did Stoke, Ipswich, so many clubs. Interesting stance by Rovers. More to the football. Blackburn are in form. They've won their last 3. They've beaten Southampton, Leicester, and Bristol City, which is interesting. 3 teams with aspirations of promotion, you'd expect. That's an impressive rap sheet. Valérien Ismaël seems to have found a bit of a formula that's working for Rovers. Home form could be their undoing because they won just once at Ewood Park, but there's a bit more confidence with this team now. Derby, of course, have won 4 on the bounce. So this will be a game that Rovers need to be switched on for, but maybe I'm feeling that there's probably a reliance on Carlton Morris and set pieces for Derby, which could be the undoing. Saw them wobble in the second half against Hull, which is to be expected. They're a good side. But yeah, I'm going with Rovers to beat Derby on Saturday lunchtime. Yeah,
people may look at this pick and say, that doesn't seem like much of a banker pick, but honestly, this weekend was an absolute nightmare for banker picks, wasn't it? I'm just looking at the odds now. This is one of only 3 games where the home side, or either side for that matter, was odds on with the bookies. So that just goes to show how much we were struggling, and one of them was Southampton v Sheffield Wednesday. So yeah, it was a tricky weekend for bankers, wasn't it? But look, we love a bit of narrative, don't we, Justin? And this game is it coming out of every orifice. It's very interesting anyway, because both started the season terribly and both now can't stop winning, can't they? And then you add in the fact it's John Eustace against his former club, who he so acrimoniously left last season when they were fighting for a playoff place, and Derby were in the relegation zone. And then you've also got so many players being poached by Derby from Blackburn in the summer. There's 5 players at Derby now, Justin, who were at Blackburn last season. In fact, can you name them all? Go on.
Andy Vyman, Danny Bart, Lewis Travis. Shit.
Yeah. I was wondering if you'd be able to name them all. Dion Sanderson.
Owen Beck.
And Dion Sanderson.
Yeah. Don't forget Ryan Nyambe, who wasn't there last season, but he's a former Blackburn player in the Derby squad. Yeah,
true, I guess. I forget Dion Sanderson was at Blackburn last season, and Owen Beck I forget's at Derby right now because he hasn't played yet because he's been injured. Should be a good player when he comes back in. But yeah, a genuinely obscene number, having 5 players from the same club over the spell of a few months. I've never seen anything like it, although I think only Dion Sanderson's probably going to start this game. But look, we're nearly 9 months on now since John Eustace made that controversial move, Justin. Looking back on it now, do you think he's ultimately been proven right in making that call?
I think so. You have to look at things outside of where the clubs are in the league right now, because that's very interchangeable. But John Eustace was given funds to add to his Derby squad that he would have never have got at Blackburn. You just look at Blackburn. Well, you just look at the players Derby took from Blackburn. Lewis Travis being a key player. Danny Bart and Andy Vyman being the old squaddies that came over as well. Blackburn have sold several key players. Travis being one, Dom Hyams another. Terry Stolen left on a free transfer. I think John Eustace made the right decision. Of course, you don't want that uncertainty in the long term either. So in terms of a high ceiling over the next few years, I think that's Derby. If Blackburn got new owners, that might change my opinion a little bit, but they don't. They have the current owners who have a very distant strategy with the club.
Yeah, that's definitely one way of describing it. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you say there. You're talking about who's the more ambitious club, and even though Derby very nearly went down last season, I would still be looking at Blackburn thinking they're probably going to be in trouble this season despite their recent form and the number of players who left, the random players who have come in. And, well, Derby weren't in great shakes not too long ago. They're looking up the table again now, aren't they? Where I'm not sure I could say the same about Blackburn despite recent form. So, yeah, I think John Eustace is absolutely right, made the right call. Let's go to my banker for this weekend. I've gone with Leicester to win away at Norwich on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, the latest edition of El Shitico in the Championship. Two clubs in really desperate states right now. Leicester with just one win in 10. Well, Norwich had just lost 6 on the bounce before drawing with Sheffield Wednesday in midweek. So it may seem like a bit of a strange banker pick, particularly with it being away. But, ladies and gents, there is some method to my madness. And that's because the name's Manning. Liam Manning, or as he's otherwise known, 007. And that's because Norwich's home record reads like this: 0 wins, 0 draws, 7 losses. Norwich at Carrow Road this season has been one of the craziest downturns in form I've ever seen. I can't recall many sides with such bad results at home, particularly when they were actually quite good at home not too long ago. They went a whole year unbeaten not long ago, didn't they? And the toxic atmosphere at Carrow Road is not helping, unsurprisingly. As soon as things start going wrong, the fans aren't happy. And the boos were deafening last weekend when they lost to Hull, particularly at the second goal. I've never heard anything like it. They did get a point against Sheffield Wednesday in midweek, but I think if either team deserved to win, it was probably Wednesday. So I will happily go against Norwich at home right now with every chance I get. And let's be frank, Leicester aren't great. They did get a point against Middlesbrough midweek, who equalised in the 96th minute. Leicester on the back foot for the vast majority of it, though, and only had 2 shots in the entire second half. They've got big problems. I just hope for this weekend, at least, their problems are outweighed by Norwich's problems. But it's interesting, though, Justin, with it being another international break after this weekend, because there will be some managers sweating a bit for the 2 weeks, these two included, the other one being Marty Cifuentes, but definitely Liam Manning, because if he loses here, that surely will be the end for him, won't it? I say with a big question mark.
Liam Manning's up to his neck in his own sweat, isn't he? He's like, come on. Yeah, going into international break sweating is an understatement for Liam Manning. But with it being the end for him, I mean, look, we saw visible frustration on the pitch from Shane Duffy, a very experienced player. So that makes you question whether or not players are buying into it at Norwich.
Against Sheffield Wednesday, this was.
Yeah, against Sheffield Wednesday. So you question whether or not players are buying into it under Liam Manning. Can they really afford another home defeat? Can they? I fear there will be a supernova-like event. Just people pink with rage, and that creates such an intense heat that a black hole forms starting at Carrow Road. It's a must-win for everybody associated with Norwich. You do not need 2 weeks of sitting on any more misery at Carrow Road. So it's a must-win for Liam Manning, and obviously if he doesn't win, logically, yes, he should lose his job. But he should have lost his job weeks ago. The owner coming out and backing him last week, that just adds a bit of a layer of complexity to a very simple scenario, really.
Yeah. Viola coming out and doing that last week he's made a bit of a rod for his own back now, hasn't he, with that. And Liam Manning was saying before the Wednesday game in midweek that sacking him won't change anything, which to a certain extent I do agree with, but it's one of those quotes which just doesn't go down well with supporters. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what the reaction is if it is another loss this weekend, particularly with Leicester not playing very well. And you talk about supernovas. There could be a supernova caused from the sound wave that's started from the boos if Leicester go ahead.
Yeah. Science not your topic, is it, Ryan? Supernovas are heat. They're heat-based.
All right, mate. Science, fine. Geography is definitely not your strength, though, is it? Justin, we'll have a quick break after that. We'll talk about our outsider picks for this weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast. We're nearly done with our predictions for this weekend. We've got our outsiders to do first of all, Justin. So let me have it, baby. What is your outsider for this weekend?
I've gone with Charlton to win away at Wrexham on Saturday afternoon. Ryan, Nathan Jones back in the motherland, back in Wales. Come on.
Feels like a bit of a forced narrative, but I'll take it.
Absolutely. Nathan Jones has lost just 36% of his games in Wales.
I was going to say, you're not helping it anymore, but fine.
Yeah. I had to dig right into the archives. Obviously, this includes Wrexham in the lower leagues and, of course, Newport as well. So he's got a very nice record in Wales. But this is a decent outsider because of the belief I have in Charlton right now. They can win by being the better team, as they do take their chances. Not like a Southampton being the better team. They actually do take their chances, Charlton. But they can show that they can win when they're not at it as well. We saw that in the game against West Brom. They stayed in the game and took the moment, albeit with a bit of fortune, obviously with a goalkeeper mistake in the final minute. With Wrexham, I do fear they blow hot and cold a little bit. Not in a negative way, but they've lost just 4 games this season, so they have got that capability of being a difficult side to beat, but that's always at the expense of themselves going forwards. Obviously, they drew midweek after a very big win at against Coventry last weekend. But they are favourites at home, and Charlton are going to have to put in a shift if they are to get 3 points.
Yeah, easy to forget that these are 2 newly promoted sides, isn't it? Charlton have just been doing so well, and Wrexham is so high profile that they've definitely not been your standard newly promoted side. So, yeah, this is a really interesting one, particularly, I think, for Wrexham after getting the win at home to Coventry last week, how they follow it up against, at their own grounds. It's going to be really interesting. So, yeah, they could really start building some momentum with a victory here. Sticking with Wrexham, James McLean says he punched a Cardiff fan in self-defence after being confronted before their match last week. He told TalkSport, somehow there were 4 male Cardiff fans, late 20s, early 30s. They recognised me and immediately started running their mouths off at me. I ignored the first jibe. The second I responded to, and I confronted them about it. Words were said. One of them, a tall chap with glasses, made a hostile move towards me. I'm in my workplace, and I feel I should never be threatened in that workplace. And I wasn't waiting for him to make the first swing. So I did. That was it. Nothing further happened, and the situation was dealt with. Wrexham said the incident was reported to the relevant authorities and declined to provide any further comments. But James McLean may have been entirely in the right there, but I think it's fair to say that trouble does have a habit of following him around, doesn't it?
He's an interesting character, isn't he, James McLean? He's one that confuses me. I respect that he's been very outspoken on his views. That's fair to him. But there are also reactions and things that he does that does piss off the masses, unfortunately. And you'll get certain fans who will take it an extra step, like maybe these Cardiff fans potentially did. While they were in the car park, I don't know, weird place to be for 4 sets of fans, but that's by the by. But yeah, it's just a strange scenario. But I'm not surprised that James McLean's probably over defensive because of what he's had to put up with. I'm not defending him in any sense, but he has had to put up with a lot.
Yeah, I don't know why you would admit to punching someone on national radio, even if it was just in self-defence, but that's where we're at with this now. Yeah, I actually quite like James McLean. I think he is a bit misunderstood, and if many fans took the time to learn why he had a particular stance on certain issues, they probably understand his point of view better. But admittedly, he doesn't always help himself. Whether that was the case with this incident, I don't know. I wasn't there. But hopefully no one got too hurt, and we can all just move on. Let's go to my outsider for this weekend. I've gone with Birmingham to win away at Middlesbrough on Saturday afternoon. And it's exciting times for Birmingham. They're coming off the back of 2 4-0 wins and have suddenly sprung to life. They've been excellent. Marvin Dukes, starting up front, has made a big difference. He looks a really classy player. Phil Neumann and Tomoki Iwata coming into the defence, proven to be a masterstroke. And Tommy Doyle in midfield has really been dictating games. They're creating loads of chances, giving very little away. They can't have been much better in these last 2 games. They've been near perfect, really. The big question mark, I suppose, is can they do it away? Because both of those wins were at home. They've only picked up the 7 points from 7 away games this season, but they'll be full of confidence after the last 2 games. And they're facing a Middlesbrough side who have dropped off compared to the early season form. They've got just 2 wins in 8. They got thumped 3-0 away at Watford at the weekend, rescued a point in the 96th minute against Leicester in midweek. Going forwards is where they're having some problems because they're not creating a whole lot, and considering how sturdy this Birmingham team is, I wouldn't expect them to create much here, so I would not be at all surprised if Blues make it 3 wins from 3 this weekend, and getting a result against a Middlesbrough side who are third in the table will be another statement result for them, wouldn't it?
Well, even more of a statement because Borough are unbeaten at home this season, so that would be a massive, massive achievement for Birmingham to take 3 points away from the Riverside. But I do feel this is a massive test for both teams. I think it's a shock test for Birmingham's current run of form, and an acid test for Borough as to whether or not they can sustain this top 2 push that they've been on so far this season, because ultimately this drop-off is a bit concerning. They can pick up results, but performance-wise, they have flattered to deceive on more occasions than not in the last sort of 5 or 6 games. And you come up against a Birmingham team, as you say, have been near perfect. Actually, the only criticism you can say is they've not scored more goals over the last 2 games, which is a very, very healthy place to be in. So, yeah, this is a good game for Birmingham because I think expectation-wise, if they can come away with at least a point, you're happy. But with Borough, it's a must-not-lose situation because of the position Birmingham are in, and also need to sustain that the automatic promotion push, who obviously being replaced by Stoke. Never ideal.
Yeah, they'll be just 2 points behind Middlesbrough. Birmingham will be if they win this game, which seems a bit mad, doesn't it, considering they went so long in a bit of a slump in form. So, yeah, that would be a right turn of events, wouldn't it? By the way, Justin, according to the Telegraph, Wolves have made a formal approach for Middlesbrough head coach Rob Edwards. He, of course, used to play for Wolves and I think was a coach there as well. Well, he's now said to be the number 1 target to replace Vitor Pereira, with an official move having been made. What do you think of that, Justin?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like Wolves aren't best prepared for succession plans because they could have made a decision in the summer to not sack Vitor Pereira, but I know there was question marks over whether he would stay and whether he should have left in the summer, Pereira. And then they could have got Rob Edwards free of charge, but no, they've got to go through the whole process of agreeing compensation fee, etc. I think it's an interesting one. I speculated on the weekend if it would be a difficult job for Rob Edwards to turn down because there's an emotional attachment to the club. That goes a long way for certain coaches, especially someone like Rob Edwards, who I think he is really emotionally impacted by sport and football. We've seen that in the past. He really, really buys into things. He's got a great job at Middlesbrough, a really, really good job, and I would expect Middlesbrough to be in a better position than Wolves this time next year. But that's not to say Rob Edwards should turn it down because it's a chance of managing the Premier League again.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm surprised, first of all, that Wolves do seem to be going for Rob Edwards, not with anything against him, but more down to the fact because compensation will be due. And considering some of the other managers they've been linked with, I assume they were going to go with one of them as opposed to Edwards. So how much they'll have to pay, I'm not sure, but I imagine it'll be a pretty chunky sum considering Edwards only moved to Middlesbrough this past summer. As far as what Rob Edwards does, I imagine he would probably take the move because of the emotional attachment that you mentioned there and the fact that they are in the Premier League. Of course, Wolves may not be in the Premier League next season because they haven't started the season very well at all. I would say there's still a decent chance that they stay up, though, because even though they have sold, obviously, a lot of their key assets over the past few months, they've still got a decent enough squad that's capable of staying up, but it's going to be a big old task for Edwards to turn that around. But if he does that, then he'll look very good. If he doesn't, I don't think he'll get a whole chunk of the blame if Wolves do go down this season, because I think a lot of the supporters there are pretty annoyed with how the club is being run. So, yeah, with that being said, I would be surprised if Edwards didn't take this move. But then the question is, Justin, what happens with Middlesbrough next? Who do they get in? Because they were just getting pretty comfortable with Rob Edwards in charge, and he may be taken away from them just as soon as they got him.
Well, Middlesbrough are in a very healthy position, aren't they? Really healthy position, because they are in a decent place in the league and they are a very, very well-run club with a lot of decent players. And the formula that Rob Edwards put together, I think, needs a lot of improvement, but there's a very solid base to build off for a manager coming in. That's if Rob Edwards takes the job, of course. We are assuming that the emotional attachment will be too much for old Roberts and he won't turn it down. But
yeah.
If that is the case and they are without a manager, I think they're probably in a better position than they were in the summer, because obviously where they are now in the league and the squad's fairly well balanced. They had a good recruitment drive towards the end of the transfer window in August. So where does it leave them? I think it leaves them in a better position than maybe a lot of people will think. I've praised Rob Edwards at times this season because he's corrected the wrongs of Michael Carrick, but he's now reverting to a Rob Edwards type in terms of style of play. Very predictable, crosses in the box, back three, wing backs, all the same that we've seen before Rob Edwards, and results have started to take a downturn.
Yeah. Look at you trying to find a dig at Rob Edwards as soon as you get the chance.
Well, just to make this point quickly, Ryan, he was a disaster at Luton last season. It was one
season, though, Justin. It was one season. But
he was. And Middlesbrough giving him the job. So for him to take the job at Wolves, if he does, that would be pretty shit. And I wouldn't be surprised for Borough fans to be very bitter towards that.
They can be bitter if they want, but ultimately the man's got to think about his career, and he'll get probably a big pay rise moving to a Premier League club. So I won't blame him if he did make that move. Yeah, as far as what they would do next, Middlesbrough, I think you are absolutely right. They're in a really good position, aren't they? And so whoever does come in, if Edwards does leave, will be a really attractive job. And I don't want to be linking any names to it, Justin, but I think they will still be competing pretty well for the rest of the season. That's all I would say on that front.
Will still is where was he?
Well, that's a good suggestion. Where have you got that from?
Where was he in France, and is that closer to London than Middlesbrough?
Yeah, well, that's the issue, isn't it? Because he moved to England because he wanted to be closer to his partner, and how logistical that would be if he did move all the way up to Middlesbrough, I don't know, but I think that would be an interesting move if that were to happen. It's a very good suggestion, Justin. Very well done to you for coming up for it. Anyway, ladies and gents, those have been our predictions for this weekend. Now it's time for this.
All right. Settle down, you lot. It's time for the Craig Bryson pub quiz.
Yes, it is, Mr. Barman. It's the Craig Bryson pub quiz, and this is how it works. Justin is going to give me 6 clues about a Championship player, past or present, each more revealing than the last. And I simply have to guess who it is. They must have made over 200 Championship appearances in their career. And don't forget, the Dexter Blackstock rule is in play. Right. So, we had a fair bit of controversy last week. That's because Justin Peach, for the first time in over a year, got a Craig Bryson pub quiz wrong. The answer was Cauley Woodrow. And despite being a fairly prominent striker at this level in recent years, and even scoring in the Premier League just last year, Justin called the Dexter Blackstock rule. Now, we've had a few people asking what the Dexter Blackstock rule is again, because we haven't explained it a while. Should have been listening for longer then, shouldn't you? But the Dexter Blackstock rule is that the player must be more relevant than Dexter Blackstock. Now, of course, that's totally down to interpretation. But the reason we included that rule is because there are some very random players who have still made over 200 championship appearances, particularly in the early years, the Coca-Cola Championship years. But it just means we're not being asked to guess some complete randomer who we can barely remember. Dexter Blackstock, a good barometer because he's memorable, well, not too remarkable, classic championship player. So, Justin, a week on from the controversy, do you think Cauley Woodrow passes the Dexter Blackstock rule or not?
No, I don't. But
come on! I thought you may have changed your tune after all this time.
I feel like I've been. No, I wouldn't say diddled a little bit, but I think Cauley Woodrow. I think Dexter Blackstock is a more prominent player than Cauley Woodrow. So yeah, that's my stance. I've said what I need to say on it, and I don't need to say any more. And I know you're grimacing right now for your pod listeners because you're questioning my stance. But I will die on this hill, Ryan. It will stay with me till the day I die.
I mean, as I say, fairly prominent striker at this level in recent years, Cauley Woodrow, and scored in the Premier League just last year. And we had our Martin Patrinsons who we asked about it, and they were completely unanimous that Cauley Woodrow definitely passes the Dexter Blackstock rule. It's just Justin being Justin. So, I mean, the problem is now, ladies and gents, it's Justin's turn to do this week's Craig Bryson, and he's a very bitter man. So I think he's going to completely do me over here with someone who definitely doesn't pass the Dexter Blackstock rule. But anyway, what have you got for me, Justin Peach? You bastard.
My emphasis on bastard there this week, Ryan. I have played 202 games, scoring 27 goals.
Okay, so around 1 in 10, which I would say is probably a midfielder. I'll go with, how much of a bastard is Justin Peach going to be to me this week? I'll go with Jeff Hendrick.
Jeff Hendrick's very prominent. He scored, I think,
I wasn't saying he wasn't. I'm just saying.
I should say, if I'm being a bastard, I'm not giving you Jeff Hendrick.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not Jeff Hendrick.
Good.
I made my professional debut in non-league in 2013.
Okay. That's quite recent. And if it's 2013, I'm going to assume he's probably still playing. Although I'm not totally sure on that. Midfielders who are playing in non-league and may still be playing now. I'll go with David Davis.
David Davis? It's not David Davis. That's a nice little one.
Good to hear a mention, though, isn't it?
It is. Third clue, right? Do you want your third clue?
Yes, please.
I didn't make my championship debut until 2019 when I was 24.
Okay. Very recent.
Very recent.
He must have played pretty much every game then in the past 6 years if he's doing that. I'll throw out Marlon Pack.
It's not Marlon Pack. I feel like he played a lot before 2019.
I can't really recall his career that much because I thought he must have come up with Bristol City, although they were in the Championship for a few years before that.
About 5 years before that, yeah.
Well, did he was at Cheltenham though, wasn't he?
I actually can't recall Marlon Pack's career before Bristol City either.
No. He was definitely at Cheltenham at one point, and then Bristol City signed him, but I can't remember when that was. Anyway, next clue, please.
I have played in Tier 6, Tier 5, Tier 4, Tier 3, and Tier 2 of English football. Just not Tier 1, which is the Premier League.
Could really do with some clubs here, mate. You haven't given me much so far. I know he's a non-league player. He's played a lot of games at non-league level, and yeah, that clue just confirms that, really. So it doesn't really help me too much, Justin. What clue? Is this the fourth clue?
This is the fourth clue.
I haven't got any idea about what clubs he plays for yet.
He's played in the Conference South. He's played in the Conference.
Mate. I got all that. Fine.
League 2, League 1, and the Championship.
Still got it. I don't have any actual football clues, though.
I feel like that's a big clue.
Is it?
I think it is.
That's what you think, is it?
That's why I put the clue in.
Fine. Don't know. I'll go with Matt Tubbs.
This is a bit of a clue, but that's close.
I mean, Matt Tubbs was 10 years ago, wasn't he?
There's correlation. I'm just going to say that. Next clue is, Ryan, I signed for Bristol City in 2023, but I've played just 67 games in 3 years. Or 2.5 years. I'm rounding up.
Okay. Let me throw a name out there, but I don't think they entirely match up. Rob Atkinson?
It is not Rob Atkinson.
Okay.
Do you want your final clue?
Well, please, because it would be very difficult if I said no, wouldn't it?
You did get a sub-clue, a bonus clue.
Oh, thanks.
There is correlation with Matt Tubbs.
Great. Now I know who it is, yeah.
Your final clue is, I was part of the Luton squad that won promotion in 2023, despite not playing in any of the playoff games. I signed for Bristol City in that January.
Okay, well, I've got a player in mind, although I'm not entirely sure when he left Luton, because I thought it was the summer before. Unless I'm getting my players mixed up here.
Tell me the player. I'll tell you.
How many goals did he score?
27.
That seems a lot for the player I'm thinking of. Well, I've got the player in mind, but I'm not 100% sure. Is it Cal Naismith?
It's not Cal Naismith.
Oh, great. Who was he then? I'm trying to think.
The only other player who's transferred between Luton and Bristol City in recent years.
Narky Wells?
It's gone the other player, sorry. There's another one.
No, I don't know.
It's Harry Cornick.
Okay, so let's just get this clear for a sec. Is Harry Cornick more relevant than Cauley Woodrow?
I feel like you dropped the standard of relevance with Cauley Woodrow.
I think Harry Cornick is more relevant than Dexter Blackstock because he's played more recently in the Championship.
Okay.
But if you're saying that Cauley Woodrow isn't, but Harry Cornick is...
I love that Luton side, and I think it was one of the... He's risen through the leagues with Pelly, Rudick and Panzu for starters, and I think it's one of those sides that is a cult hero status side, along with the likes of Cal Naismith,
scrambling
Harry Cornick, James Shea. They're all relevant players.
I will also take issue with the clues because I didn't find out what club he played for until the fifth one. And then, even then, you barely even remember he played for Bristol City.
No, well, his Championship debut until 2019, he was 24. That's a decent clue. The next clue is the biggest one in that he's risen through the leagues. That's quite a big one. And then you get the big giveaway because then he played for 2 clubs in Championship.
Okay. Well, if you're happy with those clues, mate, I'll remember that for next week or the week after, actually, because it's an international break, isn't it? Because not giving me any clubs until basically the last 2 clues, I think is a bit naughty.
This is the Craig Bryson pub quiz, mate. It's not all about the clubs. It's about the player. And I gave you a bonus clue in Matt Tubbs as well, because Matt Tubbs played for Luton
doesn't
and
help
Bournemouth.
me at all. And one of your clues basically said the same thing, that he played a lot in non-league.
He didn't play a lot in non-league. He played in non-league.
But he was basically the same clue.
Take from it what you will, Ryan. Take from it what you will. It's okay.
This is why Justin Peach is a bastard. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Craig Bryson pub quiz, and this has been Harry Cornick, and this has been the Second Tier preview show where we have been looking ahead to the weekend's action in the Championship's last game week before another international break. It's the last one though before next March time. It's for a while, March. So don't worry, ladies and gents. Got this game week, then you just got to survive 2 weeks, and then it's football. That's what we like to hear. Just before we go, quick reminder, please take 5 seconds of your time to vote for us in the Football Supporters Association Awards. Best Football Podcast, there's a link in the description of this podcast. Takes 5 seconds. We'll be eternally grateful for that. But otherwise, this has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Sunday. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.